friends. We are going to start the second session on challenges of groundwater conservation and wastewater treatment. Basically, this is a continuum of the previous session because we cannot segregate these things. They're all integrated and they have to be looked at in an integrated manner. In this session, we are going to have two presentations. One on groundwater conservation by Dr. Himanshu Kulkarni, and then the other one on wastewater treatment and approach by Ms. Shyali Joshi. And we have two very important discussants, and Dr. Tushaar Shah and Mr. G.K. Bhat. I'll take a couple of minutes just to make a few points, which I didn't want to take extra time during Dr. Shah's presentation. I think it was a wonderful setting which was made in the previous session. I feel one thing which is missing is that, though it was mentioned once in a way in between, that the drainage or the river has to be taken into consideration. But not only river, the river basin has to be taken into consideration. It's very important to look at the resource availability at that level. And then come back to these settings, which are the different settings, whether it's an urban unit or whether there is another important diversion point. It's important to understand how much is the resource available in that basin. Within the basin, there will be a lot of variabilities. That is true because we have basins which are equivalent to this kind of not the nations, but you can have a continent within that area which is occupied by our basins. We have recently done some work where we have been asked to look at the Ganga as a basin. This is the first time the Ganga has been looked at as a basin. And while doing that, we have come out with situations which are alarming as well as can feed into your policy mechanism in a manner which has never been revealed earlier. We've done hydrological modeling to look at what is the present resource, and then did the groundwater modeling to look at what is the interaction between the surface water and the groundwater. And you'll be surprised that traditionally, all the river stretches are supposed to get water from the groundwater. And we have identified, rather quantified, which are the stretches which are losing water to the groundwater because of our over-abstraction, because of our mining. And the fact is that presently our declaration of a groundwater area or a zone or a block, which the Central Groundwater Board does that exercise, whether it's going to be declared as a gray zone or a red zone, is dependent on what is the groundwater level fluctuation, how the groundwater table is fluctuating, how much down it has gone. Now, if this is the situation, there will be many areas which will never fluctuate in terms of the groundwater table because the water is coming from the river. So they'll keep on over-mining the water without anybody declaring those areas as gray or red zones. We have asked the Central Groundwater Board to incorporate this new technique of modeling into their declaration of gray zones and red zones. And we have also seen that it takes around 3 years for an area to be declared gray or red on the basis of the existing policy, because it takes that much time for the data to be collected and processed and then coming out with what is happening to that. 3 years' time, by then you have lost so much in that area in terms of making it more and more unsustainable. So when we deal with the urban situation the urban demands, I think we cannot lose context of what is happening in the bigger picture. How much is the resource availability there? Where our efficiencies of our water use are very low. Now the reality is 85% of your water is being used for agriculture sector. And what we are talking of is not even a fraction of that amount of requirement, which is the industrial and the domestic demand put together. We should try to find out, because when I was seeing your picture of the tapering off of the groundwater utilization, this is going to happen, it's quite obvious, because there's no groundwater left after that. You have utilized the whole amount within a city setting, that there is hardly any water and they cannot afford any more. If there was more, if the aquifer was good, they could have taken some more water because of the accessibility to the locals. There are millions of tube wells which are put into the local areas. If you look at Delhi, there are thousands of tube wells which are not even declared. Nobody knows that they are there. So I feel we have to look at it in a very integrated manner. Within the city, yes, I fully agree that how much is the recharge capability of that area. We should revive all the water bodies. We should do all things which are possible, even don't allow any of the natural drains to be touched. I don't know how many people know that in Delhi, we have 201 natural drains. And furthermore, all of them are carrying sewage, because 45% of the area is not sewered in Delhi. So there is an order which has been put in place last month by NGT, where I was also a member in terms of looking after these issues. We have found that the DJB was giving a plan that it will take 20 years for the unsewered area to be sewered. Now, who can wait? As a society, can we wait for 20 years? It's not possible. And there are areas where the drains in the sewered areas also, they are carrying sewage. Why they are carrying sewage? Because of the malfunctioning, because of the management issues of not having proper maintenance of your system. You puncture the sewer line because it was blocked once and is never repaired. So those are the issues, and now with the NGT intervention, which is very bad, as Mihir was mentioning, that we shouldn't allow our judiciary to come into these things. That means this is the last resort. If that doesn't work, then what next? Nothing is left. But in this particular present situation, we have gone with the focus that within 3 years, and this is what the revised plan of DJB has been done, which was quite easy, because you cannot, the major time which they are saying is going to take, because these are undeveloped areas, unplanned areas. It's very difficult to put the sewer lines into those areas. There are many people who are not willing to pay for that. So we said, fine, let's have the objective that no natural drain should be carrying sewage. If that is the objective, let's trap the sewage once it comes out of your unplanned area. These are pockets. So now with that objective in place, it's going to take 3 years. It's going to take 1/4 of the money which they had projected. So that means in 3 years' time, if this implementation is done properly, then no sewage should flow into Yamuna. So to take care of the Yamuna, which we have been doing wrongly, that we have been always thinking that Yamuna is only important, if the importance is carried on to the smaller drains, they are also as good or as bad as any other river system. So if we can save them. So the new NGT order is saying that all those 201 drains should not be covered, they shouldn't be concretized, and no sewage should flow into them. And 3 years have been given, and we are also been made party into the total committee, which is a monitoring committee. And presently today, there's a meeting going on which I couldn't attend because of this, to share these ideas. They are looking at how this has to be totally implemented in a manner which is transparent. So I feel, my personal feeling is that society has to be engaged, the transparency has to be brought in, why we are doing things, how we are doing things. I have told all the departments of Delhi, we'll help you, let's put all these 201 drains on the GIS map. Let people know that these are the natural drains which have to be saved. Then you will find that there will be many people from the localities. They will immediately make a hue and cry the moment you are going to touch those drains. We have also gone in for the segregation of the more sewage treatment plants. Around 31 new plants have been proposed by DJB, which will be coming up in the next 3 years to ensure that no sewage goes into these natural drains. And we also are taking the students along. There was another question, somebody was mentioning that why don't we take students along? In IIT Delhi, we have NSS, and every college has NSS students. I had sent last year 800 of our students to go out in different parts of Delhi and take the pictures with their mobile phones, which we have uploaded onto the website. We have created a website. And that is the present status of those drains is apathic. If you look at what is the present status of those drains, there are around 5,000 pictures which are put, and they are all georeferenced because these days with the new technology you can get all those pictures. So they are, I think these are some of the issues which I was trying to just share with you, because this is Dr. Ahluwalia has done something which is very difficult, that I think there's nobody who's here who's not the leader of their own respective segments, and they are sitting together and discussing all these things. I won't like to take more time. I'll right away go to Dr. Himanshu Kulkarni and request him to make his presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Gosai. And a very good afternoon to all of you. I am in the next 15, 16 minutes, I'll take you through a slightly deeper dive in what Dr. Mihir Shah has earlier presented, the groundwater component. And I'd like to begin by saying that this is really a couple of months' work of trying to sift through the black box of urban water data. And therefore, it's partly conceptual, it's partly conceived from sort of very little data that we have. But I think it's really more of a framework to focus and deep dive into this whole question of groundwater management and governance in urban India. Let me begin by showing you a slide, which to me is a symbol of how we look at water supply in large parts of India. If you go to the small towns in the Himalayan region, this is a common picture that you will get. This is a part of the public water supply system in the town of Mokokchung in Nagaland. And I've seen this in many other towns as well. So it's really about supply into a common source, seldom highlighting the need to focus on resource management. And at the same time, we go on putting pipes to cater to an increasing demand. So in many ways, this picture captures the context in which I'm going to make my presentation. Let me step back from the picture and give you a few stats on the global question of groundwater. Something like 1.5 billion urban dwellers rely on groundwater globally. Dependence, especially in developing cities, is quite high, which leads to a certain amount of the modification of a groundwater cycle. I mean, we've heard of a water cycle, of course, but there's something which is far more nuanced in a groundwater cycle. And I think that takes a major beating in the process of urbanization. I believe Mihir dwelt a little about this in the larger frame. But what I'd like to say is that many problems around groundwater are predictable. Few are actually predicted, and more so in the urban context. Which brings us to two very